You can be the most qualified truck driver in the world and still make decisions on the road that would end your trucking career. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you about some traffic tickets that you should absolutely never get if you want to be successful in the trucking industry. And if, or by any means, you did get a traffic ticket like this, make sure you fight it off and do not pay off the fine. I'm Ronan and welcome back to the channel. We are ET Transport, giving you the scoop on all things trucking related. Make sure to subscribe to us and hit that bell so you are notified whenever we release a new video. First off, I'll be discussing the most common moving violations for truck drivers. I am also going to be breaking down which actions will get you demerit points and some of the most illegal things that truck drivers get asked to do by their companies. So let's get into a little bit of the most popular moving violations that drivers get dinged for. So number one we'll talk about is speeding. So obviously speeding, when an officer catches you going 10 over, 15 over, I've seen tickets at 2 and 3 over. So make sure you stay away from speeding. Improper turns, following too closely, reckless driving, failure to yield to the right of way, failure to obey a traffic control device, and railroad crossing violations. So those are the most common violations that happen on the road. And now let's get into the most common illegal things that drivers get asked to do by their companies. So these usually are not the mega carriers, they're usually smaller companies with about 1 to 25 trucks where they try to push their limits. So here are some of the most common ones. So drivers get asked to run over their hours. So as you know, in Canada, we're allowed to drive 13 hours, and in the US, you're allowed 11 hours. So drivers will get asked to push it to the limits and to drive over their hours, both in Canada and in the US. So as you probably know, if you do get caught driving over your hours, either most drivers will falsify their logbooks and get caught, or some will just run over their hours and get caught. I think it would be better if you are going to run over your hours, don't falsify your logs, because you will get a violation of running over your logs and falsifying your logs. The second thing is operating defective equipment. So when you are doing a pre-trip inspection, both for your truck and the trailer, and when you hook up, if you do see minor violation, major violations, or defective equipment, you need to let your company know that there is defective equipment and something needs to be done about it. Just keep in mind that if you are being asked to run defective equipment and something does happen on the road, then you will take the blame for it, and whatever happens on the road, you're going to be responsible for it. Even if you let somebody know about it, it's your driver's license and you will still be liable for whatever happens on the road. So the next one we'll talk about is delivering while off duty. I had a funny comment from somebody, well, everybody's doing it. Well, just because everybody's jumping off a cliff doesn't mean that you need to be jumping off a cliff also. Here's a scenario that I want you to think about. So imagine that you did a delivery while you're off duty, and then you picked up a load, you shaved a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and then you pick up a load, and on the 10th hour of your logbook, it would actually be your 12th or 13th hour, and you'd be out of hours, you get into an accident. So let me explain to you what happens when you're in that accident. So they're actually going to pick up your logbooks. They're going to pick up the time when you got loaded, the time when you got delivered. There's actual timestamps most of the time on your bill of ladings or your commercials invoice. There's a timestamp of when you arrived at the facility, when you delivered at the facility. And if God forbid something major happened, they will unfold the story of all of your hours. You're going to get charged. You're most likely going to need a criminal lawyer. You're going to get into a ton of problems. Now, if something happened on the road, an accident where there's a fatality, well, you can rest assured that you'll be spending a lot of time in jail. In the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of sentences of drivers getting sentenced to prison time when things are being done intentional. Now, delivering and picking up while you're off duty is something that's done intentional, and there's severe consequences. I mean, you might get away with it for a long time, but at just that one time when something bad might happen, where they will pick up your logbooks and they will be able to connect the dots. Using personal conveyance. So here's another one that happens. Drivers get asked to do this all the time, to use personal conveyance. You should not be using personal conveyance to get to your pickup or to get to your delivery. Personal conveyance is meant for personal conveyance. So when you're at a truck stop, you need to go to a Walmart. When you're at home, you need to get to work, you can use your truck for personal conveyance. conveyance. When you finish your shift and you need to get home, you can use the truck on a personal conveyance. And also bypassing scales. When a company tells you to bypass scales, that's a big no-no. Do not ever bypass scales. That means that something's either wrong with your logbooks or the equipment that you're driving. So those are the most common things that drivers get asked to do by their dispatch or the companies that they're working for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about demerit points and safety points and how recruiters look at that. So when you apply for a position, the first thing they ask you here in Canada is to submit your CVR and driver abstract. And in the US, pretty much the same thing happens. So we pick up your safety score, we pick up your driving record, and then we'll see a habit, or we'll see if the driver, how long he's been driving for, what companies he's worked for. When I look at a CVR and driver abstract, I can see what company the driver has worked for. So if you're telling me one thing and then your CVR and abstract says something else, I can pick up on somebody who's lying about their experience and the duration of how long they've been working for. But let's say a driver with 5 years of experience walked into this office and I looked at their CVR and driver abstract. The second I see a speeding violation or a handheld device, automatically, if it has happened in the last 24 months, I can no longer hire that person. So right away, I'll just say, listen, I'm really, really sorry. You know, if you've been found guilty of holding a handheld device, or if you've been found guilty of speeding, I would say over 10, over 15, then automatically you already have demerit points and I can't hire anybody with more than 2 demerit points. Same thing in the US. I mean, if you have about 1 or 2 violations and they're major violations, then that basically just lets me know that I cannot hire that person. Let's talk about which violations give you how many demerit points. So the big one. So anything with driving or operating a vehicle on a closed road, failing to yield the right of way, failing to obey a stop sign, failing to obey a traffic control device, failing to obey a traffic control stop, slow sign, traffic light, or railway crossing. So those will give you 3 demerit points. Now, usually what happens is even if you get a ticket and you get 3 demerit points and you fight off that ticket, you should be able to reduce that sentence to 1 demerit point. If it's your first time and you show them that your driving record is clean, they usually will lower it to a something with 1 demerit point and give you a fine. If it's your second or third offense, they're not so lenient. They won't negotiate with you. So now let's talk about some violations that will give you 4 demerit points. So 4 demerit points is a little bit more severe than the 3 demerit points. So it's usually speeding over 15 miles an hour. So it's about 15 to 25 miles an hour. Following too closely will give you 4 demerit points. Failing to stop at a pedestrian crossover, that's going to give you 4 demerit points. The next thing we'll get into is tickets that will give you 6 demerit points. So careless driving, you can rest assured you are done driving trucks if you get careless driving, racing, exceeding the speed limit of 40 kilometers an hour, which is equivalent to about 25 miles an hour. You can rest assured you'll be getting 6 points and you're not finding a job after that. Failing to stop for a school bus, that will get you 6 points also. So yeah, so any one of these huge ones, you're probably gonna need a lawyer to get you out of this mess. Hopefully it's your first time and your first offense and you might plead to something with less demerit points. But usually, I mean, if you have any of these and you're found guilty and you didn't fight off that ticket, you will most likely not find a job with any reputable company here in North America. And now we'll get to the 7 demerit points. So this is, some of them are quite funny, but failing to remain at a scene of a collision, that will land you 7 demerit points. Failing to stop when signaled or asked by a police officer. So if a police officer asks you to stop and you just decide not to, so that can give you 7 points. And then reversing on a highway. Check out my video over here of how I caught an owner-operator reversing on the highway. That is a huge no-no and will probably immediately be your termination if you ever reverse on the highway. So don't ever reverse on the highway. So guys, if you're gonna take away anything from this video, it's you need to keep your driver's license, your record, you need to keep it clean, because if you get violations and if you get constant violations, that dream job of yours that you would love to get, they're going to be looking at these violations or your past violations. I mean, the trucking world is extremely small, and we send references and we receive references for drivers before we hire them. Accidents do happen for sure, and sometimes drivers are innocent, and that's why you're innocent until proven guilty. And I would highly recommend that if anybody gets any violation out there, that you do not let it slide and don't pay the fine. You should be fighting off these tickets, and you should not be paying those fines. You should be reducing that sentence because it will destroy and end your trucking career, especially if you have more than one. So guys, stay safe on the roads. I'm Ronan, and this channel is all about trucking. So if you're enjoying the videos, if you're enjoying the content, give it a thumbs up, ring that bell, and make sure that you are a subscriber so the next time we take out a video, you'll get notified. I'm Ronan, and I'll catch you in my next video.